Americans held hostage behind enemy lines. Day 52.
All right, welcome to Hannity. Sadly, day 52, Biden's State Department is, quote, not in a position to say as of yet how many Americans remain trapped behind enemy lines, hostage to the Taliban. They have no clue. They have no earthly idea. Joe Biden abandoned them. And by the way, the media mob, they just ignore the story as if it didn't happen. Imagine if this happened and Donald Trump was president. There are zero over-the-horizon capabilities to get them out. All this leverage Joe Biden claimed that he has none. It's been nearly 35 days since Joe Biden even mentioned these Americans he's abandoned. According to a breaking report from the New York Times, scores of CIA assets in Afghanistan and around the globe, they have been captured, they have been killed, or they have been compromised. Make no mistake, all caused by Joe Biden and all completely preventable. And by the way, and he does, as John Andrasik's song says, Joe Biden has blood on his hands. Joe's cowardice on the world stage will haunt this country and the world for years to come. Who will trust us again? Look at the aggressive nature of China in Taiwan today. He didn't even help his own fellow Americans. He's not going to help you. They're sending a message loud and clear that they're emboldened today as a result of Joe Biden. And Biden today is not thinking about those that he left behind in Afghanistan, never mentions them. He's not thinking about the crisis at our southern border, never mentions it. Truth be told, Biden probably doesn't even form many cogent thoughts anyway. But his staff did send him off to Michigan today to give a speech about his $3.5 trillion Build Back Better socialist spending disaster, which is now stalled in Congress, thankfully, and causing a Democratic civil war. Needless to say, the speech didn't particularly go well. Not hard to predict. Take a look.
And by the way, parenthetically, when you build a charging station, it's like back in the day when my grandpa worked for the American Oil Company back in the turn of in the 1920 in that area. They went from state to state convincing people that allow them to put 20,000 gallons of gasoline under the ground. They didn't want them around. But guess what happened? Everything builds up around them. You put these charging stations along there, how are you going to see a significant economic development go well beyond the charging station?
All right, what on earth is Joe Biden actually trying to say here? He's no Donald Trump. Notice he doesn't get big crowds, a lot of people. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And he mumbles a lot, he fumbles a lot, he bumbles a lot. And frankly, I don't even think he knows what he's reading on that teleprompter. Regardless, he's desperately trying to save this insane domestic socialist agenda. Why? Because his radical party is demanding it. Pelosi, zero control over her caucus. Her instincts would be get as much as you can and let me go back to San Francisco and let me eat a lot of designer ice cream. But anyway, she's getting rolled by the devout socialists in her base. And as I've said many times before, the real Speaker of the House, that would be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Frankly, it's the humiliating culmination of Nancy Pelosi's 3,582 years in the Washington swamp. And now, of course, with the stalled agenda, the radical left, they're implementing one of their favorite tactics, mob rule. Their victim, latest victim, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, one of two Democratic senators that refused to rubber stamp this $3.5 trillion socialist welfare madness. Yeah, she's now getting stalked all over the country. We told you about last weekend in Arizona. You got a group of deranged left-wing activists, illegal immigrants, harassing and filming the senator while she's in a stall in the ladies' room. Now, just stop for a minute and ask yourself, what would the reaction of the mob and the media be and the Democrats if it was a Trump supporter with a MAGA hat on? Why is that allowed to happen? And where are the Democrats sticking up for her? Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, you're going to stand up for your own colleagues being stalked and harassed now daily? I doubt it, because you're probably afraid of their radical socialist base. You're afraid it's going to happen to you. And Pelosi, Speaker in name only. Schumer, Well, he only answers to Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden, the Biden-Bernie manifesto, he doesn't even know what the hell's going on. And as a result, you, the American people, and frankly, the entire world is suffering. At the border, where Joe Biden should be today, a crisis continues to spiral out of control there. Listen to this. According to former Border Patrol Chief Rodney Scott, he just retired in June, 30 years of service. Terrorists from around the globe, they are now attempting to capitalize on all of this chaos, something we have been warning you is likely true. That you will have people that have agendas to bring harm to this country, and we're not vetting them. We don't look and see if they have radical associations. We're not even giving them COVID tests, and guess what? They get preferential treatment, and they don't even get a vaccine mandate. They just get a, here, will you please show up, but we're only requesting you don't have to. Take a look.
We have nation-state threats. We have terrorist threats we can't get into in this type of a forum, but they're real, they exist, and they want to come across that border. Statistically, it always includes rapists, murderers, potential terrorists. Every single year, if you look at CBP statistics publicly available, those all exist in who we actually catch.
As I've said many, many times, this is a national security crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a health crisis, of course, in the middle of a pandemic. Come here legally. I don't care where you come from. Legally, respect our laws, borders, and sovereignty. We need to know you don't have radical associations. We need to know in the middle of a pandemic you're healthy and that you won't be a financial burden to the American people. If you have that background check, you do it legally, welcome to our country. And I don't care where you come from. And yet Joe Biden, he won't even visit the border. In fact, he's never, ever visited the border. Not a single time. Not once as a senator, not as vice president, not as president. And he's been in the swamp 8,927 years. He's been there longer than Pelosi. And now because Joe is unable and unwilling to secure the borders, a group of Republican governors, they're now having to do his job, step up to the plate, but they can't enforce the laws that he won't enforce because he's aiding and abetting the law breaking. You can't make this Adam Schiff up. Take a look.
We have a crisis at our border. Unprecedented, heartbreaking, and completely avoidable. And to understand the magnitude, you need only look at the numbers. When Joe Biden took office, he immediately stopped construction of the border wall. Since then, there's been a surge of immigrants flooding our southern border. Border apprehensions are up 500%. And Border Patrol facilities are beyond max capacity.
Investigative journalist and reporter Sarah Carter will follow these governors as they tour the border. We'll have full coverage tomorrow night right here on Hannity. Now, if Joe Biden had any decency at all, well, he'd head to the border. Well, let him talk to the people that live in border communities. Let him hear from them how hard this has been on them. Let's look at the cost. Why is Joe Biden giving preferential treatment to people that don't respect our laws, our borders, our sovereignty? But Joe Biden, well, he is who he is. He's a liar, he's a con man, a plagiarist, and has been his entire life. Well, he's just maybe a slight bit better than zero experience Hunter. Only difference now is Joe is in a very steep cognitive decline. He is cognitively weak. He is frail. Anyway, his dishonesty and incompetence is now more obvious than ever. And now Democrats are rightfully very worried about the midterm elections in 2020.